And we are live. Look, it was that easy.
There
Just
we are. Yeah.
just like that. Push of a button and we go live. Yeah. How you
Fantastic.
doing?
Good. How are you today? Getting close to Christmas, huh?
Getting close to Christmas. Yeah, we're just right in the thick of that holiday, the end of the year, trying to wrap things up, also get ready for 2023 all at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
always the challenge. I'm usually ready for the new year about late February.
Yeah.
you know?
I think most people go into the end of the year with the best intentions. I think it's right around October. It's like, yeah, we got to get, planning for next year and got to get our strategy down and budgets. And then, I think inevitably it's end of January, beginning of February kind of a thing. So,
Yeah.
all right.
No,
I'm
we're
glad
good.
to,
Well, that makes me
glad,
feel better. At least I'm not alone.
yeah. So I was about to say, I'm not the only one that has good intentions, but fails miserably sometimes. So, So welcome,
Yeah.
David. I
Thank you.
mean, for those that are just joining us, and feel free if you want to add some comments out there, feel free. But I've had the privilege, can't say the words right, the privilege, the honor to have Mr. Setzer on the show, CEO of Mailprotector. It took me a while to not say Stelzer or Stelzer. I don't know if you ever get that. Do you get that?
Oh, I get it all. It's like
Yeah.
the hard thing is I'd check into a hotel and they'd be like, Setzer. No, no. Like, yeah, I'm sure I made the reservation. No, no. I said, try seltzer. Try Fincer. Oh yeah, there it is. I'm like, really, like Fincer? Like,
Yeah.
how'd you get that from Setzer?
Wow.
Even
It's
though
almost like,
I go up north and I go to Germany and they got no problem. It's
yeah,
just
they get it. Oh,
yeah,
it's almost like that. Have you heard that Brian Regan? Brian Regan's got a skit when he's checking into hotels.
yeah,
Yeah, it's a good one. If you haven't heard it, definitely check it out. But so CEO of Mailprotector. So for the audience, we try to do something I guess, left or right of center, right? You're not the norm. Normally, we're talking about the technology and all the great stuff behind the technology. We'll get to that a little bit later on, but really, this is about understanding kind of the CEO, the brains behind the operations, and I've gotten the privilege and honor, as I mentioned, to get to know David over the last year and a half, 2 years now. I guess we met quite a few years ago. But just really over the last year and a half, just gotten to know your business and interact with your team, and have a lot of respect for what you're doing. But I guess for those that don't know you, let's take it way back. Let's take you back in time. Drop some fond and maybe not so fond memories of early days. But I guess take us back to early days. Where you're from? What were you like as a kid? What were you like as a student? Let's get deep here.
this is actually, man, I'm actually a little scared about this because this is my comfort zone, which actually is a really bad thing because my wife tends to say, TMI there, David. It's just like dial it back. They didn't need to know that. And she's not here right now. So this is actually, yeah, yeah, you're in the danger zone. So first, actually, I'll just say I appreciate the invitation, and absolutely the honor is all mine. Just kind of getting to know you and what you've done, and your family, your team has been a great example. And to have Kevin Lancaster call me Mister is man, that's like the pinnacle, because what's the saying? Mister is my dad. So I don't know where he is, but yeah. So she kind of talks about the TMI. I'm a pretty transparent person to a fault sometimes. So this should be a lot of fun. So what was the question? Kind of take us back. What was it like, or kind of where'd you come up?
Yeah.
So it was a dark and snowy night in North Carolina in a hospital. No. So yeah, just kind of how I came up. I'm born in North Carolina, grew up in South Carolina. Both my parents were from rural North Carolina. My dad grew up on a dairy farm. So that what makes it kind of relevant is that mentality that I always grew up with. Farmers are kind of really the precursor to the capitalistic entrepreneurs. Farmers were small business owners that took something and turned it into something else and lived off the profit. I mean, that's kind of the beginnings of capitalism. So So, came up in public school my whole life in South Carolina, went to University of South Carolina. I am a fighting Gamecock. For any of you college football fans, go Gamecocks. Shane Beamer is going to take it for us. He's going to create that culture there. Sorry, Tennessee and Clemson, that we ruined your playoff hopes, but we relished every second of it. Great example is as a side segue. We did for you college fans. We beat Tennessee as an unranked team a few weeks ago, number 5 in the nation. They scored 9 touchdowns on 10 drives, and there's got to be a business lesson in this somewhere. But after the 7th touchdown, they ran out of touchdown fireworks. And I'm like that is actually epic. They did not have enough fireworks for the number of the touchdowns they scored against Tennessee.
How about that?
So that's got to be a business lesson. Yeah. So kind of coming up. This is one of the TMIs. My wife says don't tell too many people. I graduated high school with a 1.9, and at my 40th birthday, my mom brought my report cards and stuff, and I found out, because I didn't remember this well, it was a 1.9 because they rounded up. So I literally graduated high school with a D plus. My only A's were economics, word processing, because the girl sitting beside me was a good friend and I could copy her diskettes, and my mother taught me how to type, and business law. Slept through that class. Literally, it was my nap time. But that's what I was interested in. But to redeem it, I graduated college with a 3.9 and a double major because it was relevant to me. I don't know. I felt like I could have done high school in about an hour and a half a day. So it just kind of annoyed me that I had to be there 7.5 hours.
Yeah. Well, look, I that is such a common theme, and I brought it up on previous episodes. If there's, there are constant undercurrents or constant themes with this channel CEO podcast, live stream, what have you, is that most, we're either uninterested, uninspired, or just high school just didn't cut it for them, and we've had, I think we've had a range of dropouts, GEDs to, maybe, mediocre at best in high school. Right. And I think it's interesting that you bring that up because it is such a strong undercurrent or theme, as across the CEOs, across entrepreneurship in general. And so it's really, really interesting that you that point that out.
Yeah, I think it does have some relevance into what we do, in the business world, and maybe it's because of where my folks came from and how I was brought up. I don't know, but what annoyed me about it was, like I said, it wasn't necessarily the relevance, because I enjoyed learning. My major in college was finance and entrepreneurship, but I enjoyed classes like astronomy and oceanography. But high school seemed to me more about the process than the result.
Yeah.
And that's what kind of just caused me to do other things. Whereas college, in my experience, was more about the result. Like, hey, come to class 3 hours a week and learn this. Oh, figure out how you're going to learn it. And that's kind of more like, business. Not that you don't have processes in business,
Mm-hmm.
but you got to be about the result. I joke about salespeople and like, hey, if you can, 3x your quota and crush it and play golf every afternoon, do I care that, you're not making 100 dials a day, compared to somebody that's making, 500 dials a day and hitting 25% of their quota? It's about the result in business, because ultimately that's all our customers care about, right? Can we deliver?
It's interesting. You said that the 2 classes that you actually did well in high school, and one was finance and a legal class,
economics and business law.
Economics and business law.
I literally slept. It was awesome. It was my senior year. It was nap time, and I every day I'd be drooling on the desk.
Okay.
And that one kind of annoyed the teacher that I did so well, but it was funny. After I got out of college, I thought I felt like I didn't learn anything because it was just all kind of how I grew up. common sense. After college, my folks actually pretty quickly after both becoming educators, which is, side note, why I'm kind of passionate about the whole education world and industry, is my whole family, professors, teachers, administrators. And then, we've got 5 kids, which we've done public school, private school, charter school, homeschool, magnet school, just about everything with. But they, it was what I was interested in, and it just felt like, it felt natural. I love business. I love law. I love law. That was one of my, I was actually going to Ohio State's MBA JD program, and I got about 6 weeks before it started. And I was law clerking in Ohio, and I had just a real conversation, because I absolutely love constitutional law. And I had a conversation with the attorney, and he's kind of explaining what it's going to be like. And he's like, yeah, you're going to be reading, like, as soon as you wake up in the morning until you go to bed at night, you're, reading on the can, you're reading in the shower. And I just like, man, I can't do, like, as much as I wanted, I just cannot do 4 more years of school. I've got to go produce something.
Yeah, I can, it's funny. My wife is an attorney, and we met while she was in law school. And, for myself, having me sit down and read a book without pictures was pretty challenging. But I would be in awe of her sitting there from, 7, 8 a.m. to 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night every day. And I just like, how can this be? How can you actually sit down that long, and study and it was incredible. I mean, I'm still amazed by just how she can focus at these things for so long, where, unless I'm like really, really interested in it, and it, has big pictures, it's a challenge. It's an absolute challenge. That's interesting that you bring that up as well.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. It's absolutely a lot of work. And I saw it's funny, kind of coming from at the time where I grew up was kind of a small to mid-sized town, and pretty tame. And so I was in Columbus and worked for about 2 years as a clerk, and about half the firm's practice, it was a smaller firm, so I was really involved. About half the firm's practice was criminal defense. And I learned about a world that I really had not seen or experienced before at all. But with my kids, our kids range in age from 27 to 11. And something as they've come up, I've always taught them is, no matter what you do, learn something about finance and law, because that's how the system operates.
Yeah.
Like I don't care what you do, learn about, the basics, just basics of law, of real estate. Know what happens if a tree falls on your yard from your neighbor's yard. There's actually law around that, really old, very old law. Know what happens in those situations. Know how to amortize a loan. Know what it means when somebody talks about, your down payment and your payments and your payoff, like that's how the world works. Yeah. So no matter what you do, even though they're kind of my passions, that's what I've always kind of tried to instill in our kids, is to understand just the basic fundamentals of finance and law, because they govern the system that we live in.
Yeah. Yeah. No, well said. Well said. So you're contemplating going down that legal path, and it sounds like you made a left and right turn somewhere along the line.
Not too far off. My original, I think about every guy's, I wanted to be a fighter pilot. I actually very seriously wanted to be a fighter pilot. That's my other kind of side passion that I have no involvement in is aviation. Just love it. But apparently it's really, really important, if you want to be a pilot, if you can tell the difference between the little light being red and the little light being green.
Oh,
yeah. So, navigation, avionics, they really rely, strangely enough, on red and green.
Mhm.
So that dream was crushed pretty quickly at the end of high school, which, by the way, on the networking side too, it's actually really important too when you look at a switch, whether you can tell if the little, like, they have the little, red, orange, green, and I'm like, I got no idea, man.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, so that was the first one. The next was kind of politics because I love politics, and my dad in college said, "Hey, you probably are not going to be able to handle the amount of BS in that world."
Mm.
But I always knew it. It's we've again having three kids that are out of college and watch them kind of walk down that journey to figure out what's God got planned for my life. What am I made for? What am I made to do? I always knew just something around business and law and that area was kind of what I was made to do. So it it's never having gone through that struggle of trying to figure that out. I have a lot more empathy, kind of watching my kids, our older ones, wrestle with that a
Yeah.
bit of kind of figuring that out. And it's man, if whenever you figure it out, whether you're 20 or 40 or 60, figure it out and rejoice in it, and don't keep trying to just pound away doing what you weren't made to do.
Yeah. No, those are great words. It's yeah, and having two kids that I guess buck the trend. I'm trying to think if I was like them at their age, if they're like me, I'm not sure, but it's probably a good thing that they're not like me when I was their age. But it's interesting to watch their journey and watching them trying to figure it out and try to provide the right amount of guidance, but then not get in the way and be that dad versus just let them fly solo. So I don't know, it's interesting one. But what's also interesting, want to figure out how we kind of leap to this, is that you often you do talk about, and you mentioned early on, just kind of you just you do a lot of giving back, or you can kind of understand that's part of your personality, and you talk about education and finding purpose, but you do some pretty incredible things, not least of which is you do speaking engagements in Eastern Europe in front of thousands of people. Um, how did we get there?
Yeah, so that's a really interesting story.
Yeah.
So kind of, and that again goes back to as we call our FOO, or family of origin. Both my folks as educators came out of college, and not too long after, through some contacts in my dad's fraternity, connected with mentorship and mentorship organization, became a part of that. Kind of grew in the direct selling industry very rapidly, to a pretty prominent, influential place. And so I kind of grew up in that entrepreneurial world that was about all that, and and coming out of college. So when I decided, law school wasn't the thing, getting married, it's time to start providing, and kind of became a part of our family business. We were opening markets in Eastern Europe, and I had never wanted to go to those places. Like in college, I went to Europe once. A friend had lived there and studied, so we went for a few weeks, and it was interesting because I'd never really wanted to travel out of the U.S. So we did that, and then coming out as our family business was opening those markets, they just said, "Hey, we've got a large kind of network or group of folks over there. Go over there and figure out what's going on." And so Chris and I think we'd been married about 9 months at the time. Went over into Berlin, drove into Prague, and pretty quickly found a group of people who had lived in under authoritarianism for 40 years. They'd
Mhm.
been told, where you were going to go, what you were going to do. You didn't have, I mean, there was no finding your purpose over there. Your purpose was doing what you were told to do, whether it was, cleaning streets or accounting or whatever. Yeah, I've got, interestingly enough, one of our guys that we work with over there was in he made vinyl records, which I saw something a couple years ago. Like that plant in Chag now is like only 1 and 2 in the world with the capability of making vinyl, which is making a comeback. But anyway, that's a different story. But so what we started doing was teaching this enormous population over there just the principles that we believed in, the principles of free enterprise, the principles of success, principles of life, how to be successful, living in this world, and the principles of free enterprise. And they were hungry. They lived under. They didn't have opportunity. They lived under these authoritarian regimes for decades. They lived in oppression for decades. And so we started teaching those principles, principles like help enough other people get what they want out of life, you'll be able to have what you want. Principles about giving back. We started adopting within the first year there orphanages. And so as entrepreneurs and business leaders, we would support these folks. For us and for our own personal beliefs, it's a biblical principle of supporting those, taking care of those that don't have the ability to take care of themselves. So that grew. So goodness, coming up pretty close on almost 30 years now. We've been coaching and mentoring people over there in life, relationships, business. We produce about 3 major events a year with anywhere from about 2,000 to 4,000 entrepreneurs over there. So we produce those events ourselves, have a lot of folks over there produce, smaller events during the year. And just kind of teach those principles of success. It's something I'll share a quick story. And I think I posted on this a while back on LinkedIn. When I was in college and we went through Europe, we were going through, it was May of 1988 or June of 1988. And we were going through, and I said, hey, wouldn't it be cool? Let's go up to West Berlin. And I know there's people in here that don't even know West Berlin. What's that? Just Berlin. No, it was West Berlin. I said, let's go up to West Berlin and let's go over and go through Checkpoint Charlie and go into East Berlin and see, visit a communist nation. And he was like, yeah, that'd be really cool. And so we start looking and we're like, man, that's like an 8 or 10 hour train ride. And I'll never forget, this came back to me later. It wasn't immediately. The words I said were, nah, let's just catch it next time. It'll be here. And literally 5 months later, the Berlin Wall fell.
Wow.
And little did I know that within the next, 5 or 6 years, I would be over in that part of the world teaching those people about, free enterprise. And it's what I said was, it's a lesson in small thinking. Yeah. We grew up, as children of the 80s, we grew up during the Cold War, and it was a thing that had always been there. Mm-hmm. And you think just because it's always been, that it always will be. Wow. And that was my point in that post, is that don't think just because something has been, is it always will be. And that was just, small thinking at the time. So we've got, sorry, that was a really long answer to
it. It's great.
A short question, but yeah, it's just kind of a passion. I just love taking opportunity to people that are hungry and willing to work and willing to learn. People that are hungry, humble, and smart. They're just, they want something, they're willing to learn, and they're ready to do the work. Knowing where my family came from, and being able to take opportunity to people like that around the world and here in America is kind of just like a life's passion, which in what we do with Mailprotector and being a partner only company, just knowing how many of the partners we work with are in the same boat that we are, or we were. They're trying to feed their families. They're trying to be great, citizens in their community, and they're trying to create value for people. So being able to do something that helps those people is just, infinitely rewarding.
Yeah. Well, it's one of the things I admire about you, because that comes through every time we talk, is that, it's kind of the servant, leadership, servant heart first. And it's definitely admirable. Now, for a guy that's, I guess, self-proclaimed colorblind, right? You've got Mailprotector here with, probably one of the most recognizable, most distinct color palettes out of any tech company in the industry. So I don't know if that's by design or by, just happenstance, but all joking aside, I mean, let's jump into the origins of Mailprotector, because it's, I've, as been fascinated, by the business, getting to know, again, you and the business, extremely well over the last couple of years. But you were tackling some pretty hard problems early on, and it's funny, coming up on 20 years later, those problems are just as hard today as they were back then. And it's funny how, like, just in a lot of ways, the problems have been exacerbated. They've gotten worse, and you guys have been, the last almost 20 years, at the first line and last line of defense for a lot of companies. So I guess take us back to the origins of Mailprotector.
Oh, good. That's another big story. So first, I'll jump in on the color. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. I am I can't remember the exact medical term for it. I am red green color deficient. So I actually can see red and green. I just need a lot of quantity of the color to be able to see it. So in a logo or in a company color, I need a good bright green to see. So that's why we are, bright green. It registers for me. It's interesting how when I did that. If you looked, I remember reading something that if you looked at most logos, they were either blue or green.
Yeah.
Think about it. Most logos or company colors are blue or green. And this was 20 some years ago, IBM and, there's others. And I remember reading this whole article about the psychology behind it. Like blue was, what color is the earth?
Mm-hmm.
The earth is blue and green.
Yeah.
Blue was
safe, natural colors. Yeah.
Safe, stability. Green was prosperity. So I'm like, let's be green. I like prosperity. So anyway, sorry. So your question kind of coming back to the origins and hard problems. So origins, we, working in the family business, we had to take our business online. It was the late 90s. And I kind of just gathered some resources, some folks I'd worked with before. And we created now this is, I'm a little hesitant to admit this, because you'll realize I'm probably as blessed and lucky as I am smart, because I don't know if you use the term brains behind the operation. Yeah, I'll need to bring some other guys in here for that. But we created, so in taking that operation online, we created at the time a monthly recurring revenue user portal where people could go in and have threaded conversations with each other and post pictures and talk about them. I'm like, I think I might have missed the boat on that, on the relevance of that opportunity. So we'll give that up. So we did that, and out of it was born, actually, Mailprotector's, our actual company name is called Virtual Connect Technologies. We started building extranets. So we were basically building systems for companies, and it kind of replaced custom software. And this is a good example too, how, you don't have to plan. You don't, in a successful business, you don't have to plan everything. Sometimes things just fall into place. I look at those as providential direction. But we started developing it as online software. Now, why do we do that? Not because we were so smart that we said, oh my gosh, the whole world's just going to go to cloud-based, applications in the next 10 or 20 years. We just said, we're a small shop and we don't have the resources to develop installed software. We don't have the resource to develop it for, I don't know if XP was out at the time. Was it Windows 2000? Yeah, Windows 2000 and the 4 versions of that and the 4 versions, let's just develop it online and let people use it through a web browser. Some just kind of the necessity being the mother of invention. So that's what we did. We developed these online. We called them extranets at the time. We were really an application service provider, an ASP, and we found that within a couple of years, we were spending a lot of time, because we did the whole operation turnkey. We were managing thousands of email boxes, and we started spending more and more time managing the security for that. And so again, I would like to say that we launched Mailprotector with some grand purpose in mind, but the grand purpose kind of was, hey, here's a market opportunity, and my kids really like to eat, so let's, that was our grand purpose, which is a very noble one, actually. So let's put an admin interface on this and, see if we can sell it. And literally within about 6 months, we had almost completely pivoted to that, because, this was early 2000s at the time. The way MX records worked and the way they still work, email security was pretty much the first cloud-based application, because you could direct email flow to someone else, and then we could direct it to you who managed an email server. You didn't really have the cloud providers. This was even before Gmail. Everybody, most of them had either a Novell network or GroupWise, Novell and GroupWise, or a Lotus Notes server, or they had small business server. So they had small business server running back there, and they either could install security, and we kind of came up with this cloud-based, at the time it wasn't called that, but methodology where send the email to us, we'll perform all security, lock down your network, only accept from us, and that was the case. So we were kind of off and running, off to the races at that time. And interesting enough, you actually said something pretty prescient. The problem has only gotten worse. If you look at now, before we were dealing with annoyances. You get this virus, this worm. It was an annoyance. That's changed to even past the organized crime. We're into like sophisticated enterprise crime.
Right.
With ransomware, it's a big business. It's a arguably tens or hundreds of billions of dollars, the ransomware business, and 90% of the threats come through email. So the problem has only gotten a whole lot worse. And to kind of dive into the tech a little bit, which is what I love so much, the core root of the problem is that email is really the SMTP protocol, Simple Mail Transfer Protocol, which is a fundamental building block of the internet. And it was designed to be this. It was designed and is designed as an open protocol. SMTP was created in 1973. There were 13 nodes on the internet. Wow. And at the time, the internet was a closed system. Nobody else could, you and I couldn't just go get an email address.
Right.
Well, I was like a year or two old, but anyway, you couldn't just go, you had to be a part of a research institution or a company, and you had to be vetted. And so everybody on the network was known. So you didn't have spam, you didn't have viruses, you didn't have phishing, you didn't have malware, you didn't have any of that. Well, as the system opened, the protocol remained open. And so for 25 years, we've been chasing the problem of an open protocol designed for a closed system. And frankly, I mean, as an email security industry, we've gotten pretty decent at it. But if you look at what's happened in the threat level, or in the threats, it's actually become worse. So we're fighting this battle, this asymmetric warfare on the wrong side. If they're lobbing, $100 mortars, and as an industry, we're shooting them down with $1 million missiles.
Yeah.
You can't maintain that forever, which is why, and I didn't come here to talk about this, but is what we're excited about. Why the launch of Shield, which is coming up here in the next few weeks, is what we've been excited about for a decade, is turning that concept of an open protocol, an open system on its head. Interestingly enough, you see that problem in other systems. What is, how many people get text spam now? Hey, you want to sell your house? Hey, we're looking, you're getting text spam because the system opened up. I got my first Slack spam a couple weeks ago. I'm like, you're kidding me. Everybody said, these closed systems were going to replace email. Well, email is ubiquitous. It's open. That's the power of it. But as every system opens, it's going to face the same problems.
Yeah.
So, again, that's a really long answer, but that kind of.
No, I appreciate it. I mean, that's the whole point of this. So, I guess as much as you're able to, or you're willing to, I mean, I guess talk about the future. Talk about what's how you guys are going to be changing up the game here in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, well, that's our goal. I mean, because ultimately we're kind of a bunch of tech nerds at heart. I mean, not to overuse that cliche, but that's just the really fun stuff and what we love talking about. But it's just back to that point. It's back to the point of we've got to do. So we can't keep chasing this problem. It's like I said, best example. It's the wrong side of asymmetric warfare. We can't keep chasing the problem. We have to change the fundamental underlying assumption. And that's what we're doing. But what happens when you do that, you've got this kind of email security space. And there's a lot of providers out there. We're one of them. We've all got some differentiation in how we do things. Maybe it's in the product, maybe it's in the UI, maybe it's in the way we go to market, dealing, working with partners. So you've got that space, but then there's another space too, which is the privacy space. You can have email security and not have email privacy. There's a whole lot of things that aren't being done. And that's where you get out of what you see as traditional email security providers. But the privacy space, you've got people like Apple and DuckDuckGo and these other privacy providers out there. Well, you've got to bring both of those together. But then what we're doing as well is the productivity space. The sane, the superhuman, the sane box, the Haze you're just starting to see those guys come on the scene. Well, what we're doing is sitting at the confluence of those three places. Because it sounds corny, but what I said, we talked about this a few weeks ago at one of the events was, we want you to email like it's 1985. What was email like in 1985? It was a productive technology. We can't, it's not going anywhere. We're not going to get rid of it because it's ubiquitous. As I said in one of the videos, it's like, where else can you talk with, my daughter's 8th grade teacher and a friend in Prague and a prospect in Sydney and get my boat test emails every day about boats, which I just absolutely love boats. But where else does all that come together? It's only one technology in the world that brings it all together. It's not going anywhere. But what we've got to do is take those privacy and productivity functions and the privacy and security functions, because it has to be safe.
Sure.
We cannot keep fighting this ransomware battle. I mean, it's literally killing people. Yeah. I mean, that may sound grandiose, but go back and look at Colonial Pipeline, look at what it's doing to hospitals. Yeah. I mean, literally is killing people. We can't keep fighting it like this. And so you've got to put those two together, but it's a phenomenal technology. how do we make it productive again so that when you open your inbox, you actually get messages that you value from people that you know dealing with things that you want to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
Like let's think at a bigger level. How do we do that? And that's what we've done. We've had these concepts in our heads for a decade. I mean, I'm the one out here. I get to take credit for it, but I'm about 5% of it, to be honest. Our whole team, our CTO and his team, really a lot of this is kind of their vision. So yeah, we just we couldn't be more excited about it, and we couldn't be happier that we're bringing it to market only through partners. Partners are the only way that the world is going to have access to this. So yeah, I mean, we're pretty excited about it. We, as I say though, I mean, hey, we're entrepreneurs, right? Our job is taking risk, mitigating as much risk, but our job is still taking risk. So, as I say, we could very easily transform this industry, or just like fall flat on our faces. And hey, either way, it's going to be a good show.
Yeah. Well, we'll appreciate watching it, but I'm sure it's going to be the former, not the latter. So
well, I don't know. Either way, you're going to enjoy watching it.
Yeah. To hear you describe kind of, taking it up a level, right? I mean, it's fundamentally, as you mentioned, right, the underlying protocol and just the structure, the kind of the pipes, they haven't changed all that much. The threats have gotten, they've learned how to exploit and gotten worse and what have you. And it's just interesting that the whole space is interesting. I'm just thinking about like just the inbox in general. I've got all my screens here. The inbox hasn't changed all that much over the last 20, 30 years, right? Maybe some nuance between how Gmail looks and, maybe it's just aesthetics, but, just the user experience hasn't changed all that much. It's a really fascinating space because, to your point, it's ubiquitous. It's not a true statement, but almost not a human, on the planet that doesn't engage with email in some form or fashion, right? I don't know. Not if I have a point if I'm going anywhere with this, but
no, you're right. There isn't. I mean, think about this. You're not online without an email address. Right. It has really become your online identity.
Yeah.
Is an email address. Yeah. And the what's changed the most is it's gotten noisy and dangerous. Yeah. Right. I mean, hey, we do it too. So I'm not casting any stones here, but how many times do you want to have to tell people that, no, you don't need 15 new leads for your sales team this month, it's gotten so noisy and so dangerous. Like you got to think at the higher level problem that you want to solve. And it's a difficult problem. I mean, it's like I view our job and not just our job as Mailprotector, but our job as a technical, tech community. Our job is to take the complexity of technology and make it simple for users to use. That's our in our product development. Our Ben Hathaway's our CTO, and you'll be kind of seeing and hearing more from him. But that's just one of the core principles that they live by, is taking that complexity and making it simple for users. Because in our space, we say security without usage is useless. And for the MSPs, for partners, if you think about it, like your job is to take something that's complex and package it and deliver it for your customers so they can use it to grow their business. The best example, I remember it was, I don't know, 5, 6-ish years ago when you really started to see this major push towards cloud applications. And there was this kind of underlying angst in the partner community, which was, are we going to become irrelevant? You know,
Hmm.
all this is going to the cloud. Customers are just going to go out there. They're going to, they're going to click 3 buttons and order their 365 or their what, workspace G Suite. They've changed the name so many times.
Right.
They're just going to go order it, and they're going to use their email and their file sharing, and it's just going to, as MSPs, we're going to become irrelevant. And I remember that kind of underlying angst in the community
Hmm.
about that. And I mean, honestly, good question. It's something to think about. I didn't think that it would happen. And that was kind of borne out as you look, literally, it was about 6 months ago. We're a 365 internally, that's kind of where we are. And I think I was trying to set up OneDrive.
Mm.
And I'm like, she's all I want to do is just share some files. like, where's my small business server and my network share?
Yep.
And I'm
Yep.
not kidding. Like our tech team had to come in and it's like, no, well, you can, you do it in Teams, but actually you open Outlook and you go here and you configure this and you do that and you add it to your, Finder and Mac. And it's like we had to do all of that just for me to share some files.
Yeah.
And
It's
like
crazy.
we're pretty technical people.
Yep.
And so I honestly, I think the value prop for an MSP is greater now than it was. I swear, like the 40 user small business server sitting in the back of every company's office 10 years ago was easier to administer and use than these cloud deployments right now.
Oh yeah.
So it's a good example of what I think, of how we as a whole technical industry create value. We take what is complex or complicated and package it, manage it, and deliver it to customers that can use it in a productive way.
Yeah. So it's just fascinating to see kind of this evolution. And to your point, right? I mean, I remember those days where it's, Microsoft's going to come out with this one button and it's an app store and you're going to manage your whole business and it's that simple. And, this industry is going to be obsolete. And I think there's some prognosticators or some forecasters, industry experts that were leaning into those theories. And there's couldn't be further from the truth. I mean, the dependency today on MSPs is even greater. I mean, it's greater than I think anybody would have thought of. See, it's been accelerated over the last couple of years with global events or whatever. But yeah, it could be further from the truth. So what's next? I guess we've got this big launch. And what does Mailprotector look like in 5 years? What's this whole industry? Yeah, what's this industry look like? You can do 3 years.
Yeah,
You don't have to go out 5 years.
Yeah, that's the dangerous part. Is actually putting this down or memorializing these. What's next for us? That's easier. This absolutely, to do what we had to do to build what we had to build. Not to jump back too deep into the tech. One of our reasons we hadn't been able to build this for a decade or more, as we've thought through it, is we had to have a picture of data in transit, which we always had, because we manage the mail flow, and that's the hard part. It's we've learned over 20 years it is really, really hard to successfully manage mail flow because you've got about a 90-second trigger before the phone starts ringing. We learned that a long time ago. That's why you haven't seen in the past 10 years, you haven't seen anybody launch an email security product that manages mail flow, because it's just really hard to do.
Yeah.
But to do what we wanted to do, we also had to have access to the data at rest, because to make this easy for the user, we have to apply some really, call it AI, or really maybe more ML, to go in and figure a lot of things out. And to do that, we have to see the data in transit and we have to see it at rest. So for us, we had to rebuild the entire platform. We had to rebuild the MTA from the ground up, which is a big, huge job. And like, this launch is really just kind of a foundational launch. the ideas that we have, literally, it's absolutely a foundational V1. We will just continue making it more robust, more capable, while maintaining that ease of use. So that's kind of us, where we're headed. What I would say for the MSP, for our entire industry, I don't know what the outcome is going to be, but I was going to say, what we're going to need to do is we're going to have to figure out the security problem, because we can't keep scaling the security cost compared to the cost to the tool. We're getting to the point in some scenarios where the cost of security is 2 or 3 times the cost of the tool.
Yeah.
Like we're going to have to figure out those questions and challenges, because literally, I mean, like, who's not a tech company anymore?
Right.
Who's not? So that's, I don't know where we're gonna be, but that's some of the challenges we're gonna have to figure out. I think opportunity for the MSP industry has never been greater, honestly,
Agreed.
because technology has only become more and more complex, and for the most part, maybe a broad statement here, maybe casting a few stones, but I'll try to be careful with it. The software and the technology is only becoming harder to use.
Mm-hmm.
People aren't creating technology that's easy to use. So that, I think, creates a lot of opportunity for MSPs.
It does.
Just going back to what I think we need to do. That's what we've got to solve. And the other thing we've got to solve is the talent gap. We've got to figure out how to create and grow the talent that can do what we need done in this regard. Going back to kind of one of my passions around education.
Mm-hmm.
But at some point too, we've got to, from a societal standpoint, make sure this is kind of solving the security problem. I know this is a really rambling answer, but make sure that what we're doing is adding productivity,
Mm-hmm.
not creating overhead. And it's never going to be perfect, but we've got to focus on that, creating productivity, not overhead in the customers we serve. So I don't know where we'll be. I think those are the problems we need to solve as an industry.
Yeah.
The two, kind of the biggest ones out there.
No, I think you nailed it. I mean, especially on that second point, so I see so many technologies on a daily basis, and I think most of them come at it with the best intentions, but some are complex by nature, and they have to be complex, and how to deploy them. There's complexities and integrations and stuff, but some are overly complex, right? They're overly engineered, they're overly burdensome. They do add that overhead, that burden tax. And your point is, as these challenges get more intense, we're still facing a skills or labor shortage, a talent gap. You can't build technologies that create more overhead, because it's just not sustainable, and from a cost standpoint, to your point, we're getting to a space where, the MSP, there's some others in the industry say, MSP should be charging $300, $400, $500 per user per month. And I mean, that significantly outpaces inflation, by factors of 10. And it's not a sustainable model moving forward. And so, we obviously want everybody to be profitable and sustainable and accelerate growth. But I think as an industry, we got to think about how we're building technologies, how much overhead we're putting on it, relative to this whole challenge that we're in, right? This is a predicament, with
you nailed it right there with the word sustainable.
Yeah.
Like there's going to be some course correction, because Absolutely MSPs need to be charging for the value. I think probably one of the biggest issues we see is MSPs not being able to charge for the value they provide. So they're always kind of under the gun, trying to produce. But then you said some absolutely little zealous, like $400 or $500 a month, to SMB, is just not sustainable. What happens at that point is then they make the decision just to kind of go to the loan. Then they end up being less secure, which is antithetical to what we're trying to do. I think from the provider side, I think the companies that will thrive the most are the ones that try to reduce that complexity. And they do it, to your point. You see a lot that's over-engineered complex because it's hard. It's actually a lot harder to create simplicity.
It is.
Then creating complexity is easy. Just like that's almost like the natural order of things. Look at government. You know, I mean, do governments become more efficient and simple, or do they naturally just become more complex and inefficient? Look at 365. Look at Apple. Now I remember my first iPhone was the 3S, and I'm like, all right, this thing's pretty cool. I mean, you just understood it. It was easy to use. You just, now it's like, oh my gosh, the whole Apple ecosystem, like, where do you change this setting? It's like trying to figure it out is like nuclear fission or something at this point.
Craziness. Well, look, we're coming up on our hour here. We probably could talk for several hours. I've just been fascinated by what you've done, your journey, what you've done with Mailprotector. We're a customer. I'm not supposed to be outwardly promoting vendors, but done right by us. So well done.
Yeah,
but,
we appreciate you guys. Just everything you do for this community. Love what you guys are doing with Channel Program too. I think you and I have talked about it a lot. There are other trends in our industry that aren't sustainable. And I think what you guys are doing is trying to address some of those issues by creating this beautiful, I don't know, call it a community or a forum, whatever it is, that's just kind of bringing the community together to solve these problems and help people make, good decisions, from our perspective, from the vendor side, from the partner side. So I think it's a huge need. And to that point, we were kind of early original supporters too, and excited to continue supporting it because I think what you and Matt are doing, I think there's an enormous need for. So I just appreciate the opportunity to be here and kind of be a part of it.
I appreciate that. So where can people find you out there and on the interwebs?
On the interwebs, it's really easy. We're at mailprotector.com as a company. Love to connect with partners out there. I should probably have some fancy little QR code, but I'm on LinkedIn as David Setzer, so I'm pretty easy to find on LinkedIn. I'm back on Twitter if you want to hear some politics and things like that. I'm David Setzer there too, but probably LinkedIn's the better, the safer space to hit me up there. But yeah, love connecting with this whole community. It's just a bunch of awesome people doing great things. So appreciate the connection.
Agreed. All right. Well, with that, we're going to end the broadcast. And David, thank you so much. And have a great holiday season. Merry Christmas. And we'll see you very soon.
Thank you guys too. Merry Christmas.
Yep.